Close call, a moment of danger when life can hang in the balance.
I could see that he was gone from me.
A split second where the outcome could go either way.
You really don't have time to think. It was a life and death situation.
The difference between disaster and survival.
I had a job to do and the adrenaline was pumping.
These are the people who've been there and lived to tell the tale.
It was probably the most anxious I've been in my whole career.
It's a day they'll never forget. The day they had a close call. Today on Close Calls, a sightseeing trip in the sky turns to terror when the plane's engine cuts out. And the pilot attempts an emergency landing. His passengers brace for impact.
I tightened my seatbelt up. Paul just suddenly said, "We're going to hit that building."
And two boys are trapped and sinking in thick mud. The fire service are called in, but face a daunting task.
I was not expecting a pile of mud, which had been moved by a JCB and was actually 3-4 metres high.
The more they shoveled, the more I sank.
Weymouth, Dorset. A father is flying his 12-year-old son and a family friend along the coast for a fun day out. When suddenly, the engine loses power. The pilot quickly runs checks.
I changed fuel tanks, got two, one in each wing, in case there'd been a blockage in the pipe. That didn't make any difference. I knew then that we were in trouble.
His only option is an emergency landing. "53-year-old Dad Paul loves to fly. A passion sparked when he was young.
Many years ago, when I was a small child, Mum and Dad used to buy me the Airfix models used to make, and so of course you'd have the model there and then you'd see the real thing, and you think, wow, my interest from there has grown and grown and grown. It was always a dream of mine to learn to fly one day, but I thought it's going to be so prohibitively expensive, it was just never going to happen.
But a time came when Paul's pockets were deep enough for him to afford to learn.
I went on a trial lesson and I jumped in there, and it was like, they say you get bitten by a bug, it's true, you do. The adrenaline and everything was absolutely amazing. And then came to the day of my first solo, which was literally just a circuit to the airfield. And to have actually accomplished that on my own without the instructor sitting next to me, it was just an amazing experience.
20 years later, he's still taking to the skies and has passed his interest on to his son, Liam, who often goes up with him.
I like how it all works and how you control the aircraft. He doesn't make anything boring, he makes it all fun.
Liam is on the autistic spectrum and, although usually quiet, can get easily panicked.
He used to really get sort of worked up, but I think he's managed to control that a little bit now. You can see him worrying, but once you've calmed him down, he's okay.
My dad's a bit like my friend and I can talk to him about anything.
He is my life, he is my family. I will do anything for him.
The pair enjoy spending quality time together.
Liam and I have been everywhere. We've been down to Cornwall, we've been up to Northampton, we've been to Cherbourg. And you can just go there, get out, have a wander around, and then jump back in and fly back. It's brilliant.
Paul is an only child, and his parents have passed away. Divorced from Liam's mum, his son is his only family. But 8 years ago, he met up with childhood sweetheart, Linda.
When we was going out with each other when we was teenagers, I did a tapestry for his mum, because she had a load of tapestry, and I thought, I'd like to do that.
Paul's mum was delighted with the tapestry and promised that one day she would leave it to Linda. The teenagers later went their separate ways, but Paul's mum kept her promise, and after she died, he got in touch with Linda to pass on the tapestry. It's August and Linda's in Dorset for a holiday. Paul invites her to join him on a flight, along with Liam.
I wouldn't say I'm a big fan of flying. There's not very often that somebody say, oh, let's go up and fly. Down Dorset, there's beautiful scenery and views and stuff. And I thought, yeah, it's good.
Paul has a share in a small four-seater plane kept at Compton Airfield.
A lovely little aeroplane. She was built in 1956, single-engined aircraft. She'd just come out of her annual, which is the equivalent to a car's MOT, but obviously a lot more in depth.
He's planned a 1.5-hour trip along the coast to the Isle of Wight and back. They're all looking forward to it.
It's like near the sea, and if it's a nice clear day, you can see for miles around.
It was perfect for flying because I don't think there was much wind and stuff like that. It was a sunny day. I was sitting in the front passenger seat, so Paul was on my left and Liam was sitting in the back.
Before you take off, you do your final checks. That's obviously your last chance before you go flying. There was nothing untoward whatsoever. Took off, no problem.
Paul records the trip on a dash cam.
If I take people up for flight, I can video the flight, download it onto a memory stick for them, and they've got a memento of their flight, and then they can see where they've flown.
Taking off to me is a bit nerve-wracking because there's a lot of noise and the plane's juddering. When we got airborne, then we started chatting, and we're just generally chatting about what we've seen.
After takeoff, they head along the south coast.
We were going around like Portland, but then I was like nearly falling asleep when we were going over the sea.
Linda is enjoying her bird's eye view of familiar places.
It's sites where you've seen travelling around in a car and that, but seeing it up there, it's totally different than, say, seeing it driving around on the road.
But Paul is immersed in his piloting duties, including checking for ice on the carburettor.
And there's a little switch there it's called the carburettor heat.
But when he switches it on, the plane's engine suddenly loses power. He switches it off, and then back on, but it makes no difference. Paul immediately runs through a series of checks to try and discover the cause.
There was no need to try and restart the engine because the engine hadn't stopped, it just lost power. I changed fuel tanks, you've got two, one in each wing, in case there'd been a blockage in the pipe. Again, that didn't make any difference. I knew then that we were in trouble.
And he just said, I need to do a forced landing. I think, oh, okay, something's wrong. I remember thinking, I've got to stay calm. I tightened my seatbelt up. I just had to think, Paul's got to do what he's got to do. He's the only one who's going to get us down.
Paul puts out a mayday call, which is picked up by the Royal Navy Air Station at Yeovilton.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. PA-22, overhead Weymouth, with engine failure. And I left it at that. They can then get the radar fix and if needs be, start at least getting some of the emergency services to that area. They came back to me, but I couldn't hear what they were saying, and I was too busy flying anyway, so I replied. I said, I can't talk to you, I'll concentrate on flying.
Unable to help, Linda can only put her trust in Paul.
It is really scary, because there's nothing I can do. What will be, what will be.
Later, with the plane losing height fast, Paul's running out of options. He spots a possible landing place in a field and attempts to land.
Hold
on! Then,
Paul just suddenly said, we're going to hit that building.
Bang, and that was it.
keeping calm in a crisis is what can save you and those around you, and it can certainly help if you get yourself into trouble a couple of 1,000 feet up in the air. Off the coast of Dorset, near the seaside town of Weymouth, a small plane with 3 people on board has lost power. Amateur pilot Paul has put out a mayday call and is desperately looking for somewhere to land. On board is his young son Liam and Linda, an old friend. the plane doesn't have enough height to get over the inland hills.
I knew that I was restricted to what was on this side of the hills, and I had to look for what looked like a flat, unobstructed field.
There was no conversation thing. We was just feeling just on your own.
The best field I could see was a sports field. I thought, this is great. And then as I got closer, you could just make out the people playing football there, and I thought, oh. I did see another field just to the right of it, and as I turned to go onto the approach for that field, I could see that there were the electricity pylons.
Liam is asleep in the back of the plane. Linda is beside Paul, but he has no time to reassure his passengers.
It crossed my mind very briefly, and I just thought, I've just got to concentrate on landing. Neither of them said anything. They both kept quiet.
I was bearing in mind, I had a 12-year-old at the back. I couldn't freak out, and also it wouldn't be fair for Paul. He's got a job to do. He's got to get that plane down.
Time is running out for them all.
I was coming down lower, and my options were getting fewer and fewer. And I just glanced down to my left, and I could see this field. It was a long field, long, narrow field. And I thought I could get in there.
Paul sets up for a crucial circuit before landing. It's critical he gets it right. There won't be a second chance.
If you've lost power, you can't put the power on to bring yourself back up. So if you're too low, you could land short. If you're too high, you can land too fast.
He brings the plane down to a suitable height to line up for landing.
Suddenly, we just swooped down, which that was, thought, yeah, this is seriously, I could crash here. It's just like being on top of a roller coaster, just looking straight down. And then we turned, okay, we're not going to be able to land safely because to me, it didn't look okay. And I just saw a fence, which we then sort of flew over the fence into that field. But I didn't know how the ending was going to be.
It's a nerve-wracking moment.
Hold on!
The plane touches down.
I landed exactly as I would do if it had been a normal airfield.
Felt the wheels touch the ground. Thought, okay, we might be okay now.
But they're not. Low in her seat, Linda can't see what's coming next.
There was a bump which put me back into the air for a good length of that field.
Off the ground again, Paul can't apply the brakes to slow down.
And when I landed, there was too short a run to stop.
What's more, there's a pig shed directly in their path.
I saw this building coming towards me, and I literally thought, here we go.
And then Paul just suddenly said, we're going to hit that building. I had no idea how far that building is, what that building was.
And I hit the building, bang, and that was it.
I remember something really pushing, so it knocked my headphones off, which knocked my glasses off. Then I was upside down, hanging by my lap belt, with the weight of Liam on my back. And I just remember just thinking, ow, this hurts.
The plane comes to rest on top of a second pig shed. Liam, who slept through the whole thing, wakes on impact.
He was screaming. But at least we knew he was okay.
And I didn't realise anything was going on until I woke up. I was a bit scared because I didn't know what was happening.
I told him to kick the door open. I said, because it doesn't matter now, just kick the door and get out.
It was tough to open the door because it was just all like squished together like the door frame.
So I just remember Liam bashing his way out with his legs to get that. He managed to get out. I remember feeling the weight off my back.
The next thing I heard was, I'm out, I'm standing on the roof. And I thought, roof of what?
Linda undoes her seatbelt.
But then I could smell the fumes from the plane, and I knowing we've got to get out just in case he caught fire.
She manages to crawl out of the wreck. Liam is relieved to see her.
I saw Linda coming out. I think she looked a little bit scared because of what happened.
He was really crying. I think he was so pleased to see me. I just remember his face was covered in blood. I just gave him a massive hug. I was feeling so relieved with I sort of got out, and I suppose he was feeling like probably mixed emotions because it hadn't really hit us. We've just survived and we got out.
Finally, Paul sets about freeing himself from the wreckage.
Managed to get my head sort of stuck between the door and the door pillar. Where he had the seat belts hanging down, I was able to sort of lift myself out on that.
I saw my dad walking round from the aircraft and I gave him a hug. I was very happy. It made me feel a lot better.
I said to Liam, I said, come here, I said, you've cut your head. And he looked up at me and said, so have you? I said, have I?
Paul's mayday and a 999 call from the farmer who owns the field means the emergency services are already arriving at the scene. An emergency response vehicle is soon joined by 2 more ambulances, 2 fire engines and an air ambulance. As the firefighters hose foam onto the plane, medics check over its passengers. Miraculously, they all appear to have walked away with just cuts and bruises. The air ambulance is stood down and they're taken by road to Dorset County Hospital near Dorchester.
Felt a bit of a pain in my right ankle, but other than that, nothing. And then the adrenaline wore off, and oh my goodness me, the pain then.
You didn't fully appreciate how much pain he was in, but it was just, I just went in complete shock. I was just shaking, I was crying, I just couldn't breathe properly, I was hyperventilating, and it was just scary because I just got through that.
Paul and Linda are x-rayed, but the results appear fine. The trio have their cuts glued and stitched, and then they're all allowed home. The next day, they revisit the scene of the crash to collect belongings from the wreck of the plane.
It was literally crumpled up, especially where we were. And just thinking, we managed to crawl out of that. That's when it really hit home. I think, how did we get out of that?
Paul returns to work still in pain. A second x-ray reveals damage to his back, including a compressed disc and a fractured vertebra. He signed off for 7 months. For Linda, it was a life-changing experience.
You realise life is too short, and where I wasn't happy before the plane crash, I thought, I've got to change my life, so I moved house, got a new job, new over there, I'm making a load more friends.
What caused the plane to lose power that day was never established. Paul suspects something blocked the air pipe, but the experience hasn't put him off the hobby he loves.
I've been flying loads of times since. I've bought into another aeroplane and hope to do lots of flying this year again, as I did last year with Liam.
Well, pilots do have a reputation for staying cool in a crisis, don't they? See you next time on Close Calls.